Hello, and this is Heart to Art, and I'm Peta-Gaye Nash, and I'm so thrilled today for my guest, Matthew Testament Jones. He is a father of four and Ontario's second Poet Laureate. He has so many inspirational messages, especially at a time like this for young people. He's doing so much work in the community. I can't wait to share all his messages of hope and inspiration. Actually, his special motto is never let anything put out your fire. I'm so excited today to introduce Matthew Testament Jones.
Hello, hello. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am well and so excited to have you here with me today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. What a pleasure it is to connect with you. I've been looking forward to this conversation. So thanks again for having me out.
I'll be honest, I don't even know where to start because you have so much going on. But let's start with you being Ontario's second Poet Laureate. Please tell us what that journey has been like, how you started, what you're
Okay.
doing. Take it away.
Perfect, perfect. So on November 26th, 2024, I was installed as Ontario's second Poet Laureate. For those of you that may not know what a Poet Laureate does, I am meant to raise the voice of other poets in Ontario. I'm meant to go to schools to talk about the power of literacy, spoken word, poetry, and culture. And I represent arts and culture in a general sense for the whole province of Ontario. To be entirely honest with you, I have been writing for over 30 years, performing for over 20 years, and I've never really sought any accolades for the work that I've done in the community. But one day, a friend of mine sent me a LinkedIn posting, and he said, Testament, this sounds exactly like you. I read the posting and I was like, I do this every day. So I decided to apply, and I did about 5 different intense interviews. And yes, I have been selected to represent the whole province of Ontario for the next 2 years. So it's really, really exciting. I'm really looking forward to it. But most importantly, and what I really sold them on in my interviews is the idea of representation. I was born in
Mhm.
Toronto, lived most of my life in Mississauga, and the GTA is only a very small area in Ontario. Our province is actually enormous. So I'm looking forward to not only traveling to other parts of Ontario, but learning from some of the different voices and sort of helping to amplify their stories and their messages. So that's just a little bit about what's going on in terms of the poet laureateship.
Okay, so can you do this with a full time job, first of all?
So I'm a full-time entrepreneur, right? And again, the reason that I applied is it's sort of aligned with what I already do each and every day. So the poet laureate is sort of like a distinction that I can add to the work that I already do that can get me into maybe some spaces that I might not have been able to access without the particular title. So yes, they both go sort of hand in hand to enhance the work that I'm doing. Yeah.
What a wonderful opportunity. So you're a spoken word poet, artist. And, I saw your performance. I was not there in person, but thank God that someone from the Mississauga Arts Council, recorded that for me to see. You are
Right.
wonderful. I always thought that to be a spoken word artist, you had to memorize everything. So glad
Mhm.
to know that that is not necessarily true.
Yeah. That's a
So
good point because, like, for me, I like to create custom pieces specifically for the event. The Mississauga Arts Council event was happening at Riverwood. And if you heard the piece, Riverwood is a very, very special place to me, having lived in Mississauga for over 25 years. So I was really glad to create a piece about Riverwood. So I didn't have the ability to memorize it. So, yes, it really depends on how many pieces you're going to be performing, where you're performing. I definitely have a lot of older pieces that are recorded and I can remember them. But as I said, I very often like to craft very specific custom pieces depending on what space I may be in.
I love that because, young people they don't have to be hindered by thinking, oh, I have to memorize this. And what if I get stage fright?
Right,
No,
right.
go out there and use your phone or, if you're old school like me, paper and
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
and do your stuff, show what you can do. So you're also a certified hip hop cultural specialist.
yes, I am.
I didn't know. I have no idea what that is. But
Okay.
it sounds amazing. What's that journey about?
So for about the last 8 years, I've been studying with an organization called the Temple of Hip Hop. The Temple of Hip Hop was founded in 1996 by our teacher and our mentor, world famous rapper KRS-One. And the Temple of Hip Hop was started with this statement: rap is something we do, hip hop is something we live. So at the Temple of Hip Hop, we consider ourselves a mass, a ministry, an archive, a school, and society. So it's not so much about preserving chart topping hits or artifacts, which are great. It's more about preserving the actual culture of hip hop, which was founded on peace, love, unity, and safely having fun. So, a hip hop cultural specialist, we specialize in making sure that people understand where this art form transitioned into a culture came from and sort of keeping some of those aspects alive. People tend to get really caught up in what's happening on social media and the popularity. When I grew up, hip hop was still sort of an underground art form, but it has transitioned into the dominant pop culture. And because of that, when money gets involved, people seem to think that it's only about some of these messages and these narratives that are out there. So, my work as a hip hop cultural specialist is again to pay homage to the roots, but make sure people also know that this is something that we continue and we're moving forward each and every single day.
When I was growing up, I'll admit that I didn't understand anything about hip hop. I mostly was aligned with my culture and dance hall. But I
Mhm.
think in our previous conversation, you mentioned that hip hop came out of the civil rights movement. What would you say to people who don't really understand what hip hop is? Maybe they look at it as a certain type of music for a certain type of person. Maybe some of the words in there are also, very negative to some. What would you say about all of that?
That's a great question because as I mentioned, there's a lot of misconception. Let's be truthful. Hip hop was born out of street culture. And, as we know, the civil rights time was a very, very sticky time, especially for the black and brown community in terms of the things that were happening. And where hip hop was born in New York City was no different, right? New York City was a very dangerous place. People did not want to be walking around by themselves. So they joined a lot of street gangs. And as you can imagine, there was a lot of conflict, right? So there was an organization called Zulu Nation, which were a bunch of ex gangsters who wanted to change their community. They wanted to see more peace. They wanted to see more unity. And this is where we got the first principles of peace, love, and safely having fun. These ideas sort of came out of that, right? But like anything that gets commercialized, once the record companies saw that there was sort of a space to commercialize some of the aspects, unfortunately, the violence, the drug abuse, the gang violence, all things that were present in the community sort of got amplified in the music. Whereas the people that were sort of creating the culture were trying to move away from these things, but they noticed that, these songs, these messages, this is what the airplay was getting. And specifically because, the white community and people that didn't live in these areas started gravitating to it. So they're hearing these stories of running from police and selling drugs. And this was sort of appealing. Like, let's be honest, as a culture, we're sort of gravitating to violence. We like seeing things blow up. We like fast moving things in the movies and stuff. And it's no different with hip hop culture. So there was sort of like this crossroads where you have the community that wants to move forward away from the things that are deteriorating their community. But then you have the monetization by these corporate entities that are like, listen, this is an untapped market. So, what I would say to people that are maybe not too familiar with hip hop is do your research. Please don't just look at Wikipedia. Go to multiple different pages. As we tell all of our young people, the multiple sources that you can find that confirm this information, the more relevant or correct that it may be. But again, this is part of the work that we're doing at the Temple of Hip Hop. So if anybody wants more information, please go to thetempleofhiphop.org and we can absolutely get you some information there. There's text, there's videos, there's audio that can sort of walk you through some of the historical aspect that we don't see in mainstream.
Absolutely, because it gives such a negative stereotype about hip hop and the black community. So I'm really happy that you're doing the work to really change that narrative.
Yeah, because for me, hip hop is the voice of the young people, right? Like, irregardless of how people feel about hip hop, in my opinion, next to God, hip hop is the most powerful force on the planet. Now, there are people that may say they don't like hip hop as music, but they like our fashion, they like our language, they like our styles, right? So this is sort of broadening their mindset to see that hip hop encompasses a lot more than just music. A lot of people actually don't know that since May of 2001, UNESCO and the United Nations acknowledged hip hop as a universal culture of peace, love, and prosperity. Over 200 hip hop artists came to UNESCO and the United Nations headquarters in New York City, and they presented a document called the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace, the HHDOP. For those of you out there that want more information, just Google that, and it will show you that there are 18 principles that the hip hop community feels can not only benefit hip hop, but the entire globe. And again, as I said, as of May 2001, hip hop has been acknowledged as a universal culture of peace, love, and prosperity.
Wow. So I'm all over the place here. Two things you mentioned, God and peace. Let's start with God. I'm noticing that so many successful people have this spiritual journey and this connection to God. And I think you had mentioned that the Spirit of God is a flame. You'd mentioned this when we had a previous conversation, and it
Right.
can burn bright or it can burn dim.
Mm, yes, yes.
Elaborate on that.
And like, I just got to be forthcoming. Like for me, I'm a believer. I have faith. I believe in God. And I have to be honest with you, I can't do life on my own. Without that spiritual aspect for me, to be honest with you, I would get overwhelmed by the emotional nature of each and everyday life. So for me, faith is a big component of not only my work, but my everyday life. You know, I start my day with my prayer and my meditation, whether that's silent time, whether that's being grateful. I love gratitude and being thankful, you know? So I love to sort of acknowledge the supreme being, the creator of all things, not only for my talent, but the ability to live the life that I do each and every day. Because I've realized there's two things we never get back in life: the way we spend our time and the words that we say. So I don't take anything for granted. Again, I'm so thankful to be here on Heart to Art, and I love it. Right? Or maybe I said that the wrong way. Art to heart to art. They both work
All right.
in the same thing, right? Right. We could use them in the same way. But yes, my spirituality is absolutely the foundation of my life. And I have to credit my mother, my parents for instilling that into me as a young person. Now I'll say that, you know, I'm not so much into religiosity, and that's a whole nother conversation. But what I mean by that is sort of these predetermined ideas of what spirituality is meant to look like. But I absolutely believe in God. And I feel that when we tap into that, to your point, the flame can burn brighter and brighter. But for me, if I'm just relying on self, that's when things will start to dim. So I always have to give acknowledge to, you know, where I get my source and my strength.
Absolutely. And I think that, this is such a strange time that we're living in. And I just spoke to a young person last night who said, she just felt this anger within her.
Mm,
And I told her, I said, don't forget to seek guidance, you
right.
know, to get rid of some of that anger. But what would you say to young people who are going through this I don't know, they're young, they're transforming, they're trying to do things, they're trying to get out of the positions that they're in into something. They're trying to elevate themselves, really, is what I'm trying to say. What
Yeah.
advice would you give to them?
Yeah, that's a fabulous question. And what I think is important, and you know, I grew up in a very religious home, and I have to be honest, it wasn't by being forced to go to church or forced to read the Bible or do things where I actually got that relationship, right? So what I would say to young people and to anybody listening is, how are you developing your own personal relationship with creator? And I love to compare it like this. You know, I'll ask people, do you have a good friend? Do you have a best friend? Is it possible to get close to them without spending time? So to me, it
Mhm.
comes down to intentionality. Where are you investing your time to see the areas of growth? Like we all wish we could go to the gym, do 10 sit-ups, and we got the six pack ready for the summertime. Summer body's good to go. But the reality is, no, I have to stay consistent. I have to be deliberate. I got to keep going again and again. So I might pray. I might ask for guidance and know the answer may not drop out of the sky. But if I stay focused and connected and continue to seek, as you said, that higher guidance, then eventually I will get to a breakthrough. Now, let me be clear: these breakthroughs, these answers may not always come in the form that we're looking for. And this is why we have to be sort of open to how we can receive some of the answers. I'll just speak for myself in my personal life. Like there's been times where I'm seeking for an answer, but I want it to come a particular way. I want it to come at a particular time. And as time passes, I realize, oh my goodness, if I had gotten it then, I wouldn't have been a good steward of it. I would have let it fall through the cracks. And even though it didn't come on my timing, it came when it was supposed to come. So again, I would encourage people to be patient. We live in this instant gratification, impulse sort of society.
We
Everything is
do.
sort of like, I'm hungry, press a button, let me jump in the microwave. I want information, let me go online. I want a date, let me swipe right, swipe left, whatever the case may be. But what I'll say is like, we got to be patient, but more importantly, open to receiving the blessings or the answers as they may come. And that may come through another person. That may come through something that you hear, something that you watch on YouTube. Again, the idea is sort of about being open and not rigid in the ways that you expect to receive, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Powerful, powerful message. And I know it's happened to me, praying for something, and then suddenly something that was before me all along, I just get this light bulb, and I know it's not from me. I know it's from the divine.
Love
So the
that.
next thing is peace.
Yeah.
Peace. Your thing. Okay, tell us about that.
So, first of all, I got to give a shout out to the Peace team. Big shout outs to my good friend Russell King, aka Ross Soul. Shout outs to Nilla. That's the Peace family. So, I am one of the co founders of Peace. It stands for People Everywhere Actually Coexisting Equally. And it was actually based on one of my friend's lyrics. And I was at Russell's house. We were hanging out, eating some food. And he turns to me and he says, Testament, can I share some lyrics with you? And I said, my brother, I love your lyrics. Please go ahead. And here's what he said. He said, I am a king, so understand my dreams before you speak to me. People everywhere actually coexisting equally. And when he said that, he was trying to continue with his rhyme, but I got to be honest, I totally cut him off. I was like, stop, stop. I said, brother, that is the greatest acronym for peace I've ever heard of in my whole life. And I started getting excited. I'm like, we need stickers, we need t shirts, we need a website, we need a whole peace movement. So in
Yeah.
2007, we launched the Peace Movement, which is all about helping people realize that each one of us is a piece of peace. What I mean by that is I believe that each individual possesses unique skills, talents, and abilities. And when you use your skills, talents, and abilities, and I do the same, they can come together like puzzle pieces. So we are a collective of artists that do different type of work in school boards and those servicing youth. So whether we're doing assembly presentations, keynotes, workshops, summer camps, whatever the space and the place, if it's about the upliftment about youth and those that serve the youth, that's sort of where you'll find us.
Do you have a success story from your peace movement and going into schools and doing your workshops and assemblies?
Oh my goodness. Like every day, these kids make us feel like rock stars, whether young people are coming up to us saying, are you going to be here every day? Asking us for autographs, schools giving us testimonials, working with school communities like on a consistent basis. So, one thing we try to get away from, we do it, but we try to avoid the one off, right? We really sort of want to develop relationships with the communities. So, one of the most exciting things is sort of watching some of the young people. You might meet them in a grade 4 or grade 5, and then you watch them transition into high school and they talk about, hey, I remember when I first saw you or saw one of our artists from our team. It's super inspiring. And I tell the young people every day that they are the reason that I do this work because as much as we go into the space to educate them, I'm a lifelong learner and I'm open to learning from the young people. And I have to be honest, they blow my mind each and every single day. But bringing it really, really close to home, I'll speak about a school community in Brampton that we've been working with for about the last 5 years. This year in particular, I've helped them start up their Black Student Association. So it was really cool to watch the young people step forward and take on leadership roles in the school community. So myself and my artist came in to do the presentation, but it was in partnership with about 15 of these young people. So it was so cool to watch them not only take on some of the things that we taught them, but share that with their school community. Like I'm a parent myself, but I get to work with a lot of young people. And, I felt the ownership. I was smiling ear to ear, just watching them do their thing. Yeah.
It just takes one person to give someone else a chance. and that can just change the trajectory of their entire life. So you guys are just, you're really doing that. You're out in the community and actually inspiring people. And all your information will be up so that
Yeah,
people
yeah,
can get in touch with you. And, hopefully there's some great collaborations that come out of this.
we love
So
that.
your journey, who inspired you? When did it
Mm.
all start?
Yes, yes, yes. So I got to give a shout out to my mama. When I was about 6, 7 years old, my mom, she gave me a diary. Yes, it's exactly what you're thinking about. It had pink and purple on it. There was a little key for me to lock away my secrets and all that stuff. But when I started writing, it was really just this idea of expressing how I was feeling. Like, you know, the girl that I like ignored me today. Somebody else talked to her. I want this for my birthday, and so on and so forth. But by the time I was about 10, 11 years old, I started to keep a poetry book. I just always loved words as a form of expression. Some of the home situations weren't the greatest, but I felt like on those blank sheets of paper, I could sort of create these stories and these ideas that I didn't necessarily experience, but I could create them on these pieces of paper. So that was when I really fell in love with poetry specifically. I continued that. And then when I was about 14, I fell in love with lyricism and rhyme construction. And I haven't looked back since then. I've recorded 3 albums. I've been able to do a lot of different features. I'm working on a new project right now. I have some books on the go. A lot of cool things happening, but one step at a time. Being an entrepreneur, we got a lot of different hats that we wear, but
Mhm.
absolutely a lot of great things going on. But origins, that's got to go to mama. I got to give my mama a shout out. Absolutely, absolutely.
Wow. Amazing. I love to see that. I love to hear that. And you said in COVID, you learned a lot. You had to pivot. And I think this is an important question because when we when I first met you over the phone, you talked about financial independence. And I think this is such an important message for people. And also, I'm asking many questions here, but you're doing so much. How do you, okay, so these are two questions in one. Financial independence, how did you do it? How did you pivot in COVID? And how do you manage all these wonderful things that are happening in your life right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, like many other people, the end of 2019 into 2020, we all know sort of what happened in the world, but I'm super blessed and I believe God has a divine plan. So actually, in November of 2019, I had been very specifically seeking financial mentorship. So one of my financial agents actually put me in touch with somebody by the name of Ty Jackson. And I went to meet Ty Jackson. And after meeting with him, I was so excited for his mentorship because he's in the financial services industry. And for me personally, as a Black man, it was so inspiring to see other Black people that wanted to achieve financial independence. Unfortunately, in our communities, this isn't something that has always been taught or always has been relevant. It is
It
starting to
happened.
sort of pick up now. But
Yeah.
like, if we look at other cultures where this is something that they're teaching to their young kids from like sort of a younger age, I never personally experienced that in my community and my culture. So when I met Ty, I was so excited for his leadership. And I have to give it up to him that as soon as COVID hit, he immediately started utilizing the Zoom platform and training us. So literally every day we were sort of learning about how money works, different financial tasks that he would give us. So for me, even though I had to pivot and I wasn't in the schools, I was like, oh my goodness, here's something to study. And then I decided to get my insurance agent's license. So I had to study for that. I did more studying than I had ever done in all of my schooling to get that. And I became a licensed financial agent, right? So for me, it was so cool because the people around me were prepared to pour into
Mhm.
me. And I sort of received that. Similarly, this is on a different lane, but also with the Temple of Hip Hop and KRS-One. Immediately as COVID happened, this is a person that's usually touring the world all the time, made himself available every day on Zoom for 5, 6 hours, again, to sort of pour into the community. So I was getting fed by all of these different voices while everyone's trying to sort of figure out what's this COVID thing sort of going to look like. And what I will say is it's absolutely not easy. The entrepreneurial life, this is not every 2 weeks you're getting a paycheck, right? Sometimes you got a mountain of cash, Other days it's really, really slim and thin. But again, with some of the foundation, when I started to learn about how money actually works, I was able to sort of put away and save. And also, I got to be honest, thank God for lines of credit and credit cards, right? So that you can sort of use those to bridge the gaps until you get some of that money to be able to deal with some of that balance there. You see what I'm saying? Because
Absolutely.
again, I'm going to emphasize the entrepreneurial life is not for everyone, right? But I've sort of had that entrepreneurial spirit for a while. But I will say that my mentorship very specifically was an enormous part of being able to navigate those very, very rocky spaces. So that once people sort of started to figure out the landscape of COVID, we were already prepared because, as I said, as soon as it happened, we were getting that knowledge and we were studying in that way. Yeah.
It's such an important message, especially for young people, but for anyone of any age can have mentorship. And, if any young person is watching this, I would say you don't even just have to have one mentor. Have mentors in different areas. Have a financial
Exactly.
mentor, have
Yes.
a career mentor, have uh, um, a coach, meaning your physical fitness mentor. So it's so important to go out and seek those people who are willing to help.
Yeah. And you said it right. Seek them. Like, go out and actively look for these people. Don't be afraid to approach somebody on Instagram or somebody in the community that you know, or even asking other people to connect with you. And I think your point cannot be overstated. Like, I have hip hop mentors, financial mentors, fitness mentors, spiritual mentors. To your point, it's important to get the right mentorship in the area because they already have the things that you may want and they can help guide us through the process. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wish I'd known all this when I was, young, because it really
You and
does.
me both, right? For
Yeah, it
sure. For
changes so much about your life when you have this knowledge. And for the money thing, as you said, it wasn't in your culture, it was never in mine. There was always this fear that it was never enough. And that's
Mm,
just the first block.
exactly.
So amazing work that you've done on yourself, because I think that's important to get to do the work on yourself. That's the only way you're going to be able to help other people.
Yeah. And another point I will add, big shout out again to KRS-One, our teacher and our mentor. During the COVID time, he said to us, he said, everything is getting more expensive. You all need to get more valuable.
Whoa.
And that hit me so hard because often, absolutely nothing wrong with, being an employee, but maybe some people might not be familiar with the book called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I would absolutely recommend that book for anyone that wants to know about money because he talks about something in there called the cash flow quadrant, right? And the cash flow quadrant is a breakdown of the different areas and how sort of we can navigate to make money and what that looks like, right? But this idea that the more valuable you get, the more skills that you have, the more likely people are going to be able to pay you for some of those skills, right? So what I like to say to a lot of young people today is I'll ask them, hey, what do you want to be? What do you want to do in the future? And they'll say something like, I want to be a dancer or a lawyer. And I'll say, not or, and. Why can't you be a lawyer and a dancer
Yeah.
and a financial agent, right? So those words from KRS-One always echo with me. Get more valuable because once you're more valuable, the financial security will come.
What great advice, especially in this political climate. Invaluable. Thank you so much.
Some gold, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Um, it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful speaking to you today. You have just shared so much wisdom that I think we can all use, not just young, but old and in between. Everybody can use this wisdom.
All ages. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me here. I
Oh,
never take any opportunity lightly. And it's been great chatting with you. You got such great conversations, even from the first time that we spoke.
you.
And I appreciate you taking this time for allow me to share some of my messages. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. But I missed asking you about what's next. You have a
Ah,
big trip coming up.
I do. I do. So actually, I am heading to the Philippines on Thursday, March 6th. I'll be heading to the Philippines and I'm actually going with one of my mentors. from one of the school boards that I've been working with for about 15 years, the Toronto Catholic District School Board. We're taking about 25 students on a service trip to the Philippines. We are going to go and serve some of the community out there. We're bringing a bunch of donations with us. We're going to be doing some construction on some buildings that will help serve the community. And then after we do that work, I did give myself 6 days to go and lay down at the beach and catch some sunshines, because those of you that are here in Canada and you've been in the GTA, you know we've been walloped this year. And I was born in Toronto. I love Canada, but I'm a tropical soul. So I'm trying to go get some of that sunshine. Absolutely. So that's something that's on the horizon for me, just in terms of the immediate right now. So I'm really, really looking forward to being overseas. Yeah.
I'm so excited for you. I'm a tropical soul as well. Can't lie, little envious of your trip to the sunshine, but wishing you a safe trip and, just blessings on all the things that you're doing. It's been amazing chatting with you today. You're doing so much for so many.
Thank you. And thank you for this platform. I wish you all the success with this platform and sharing the voice of other people out there. It's amazing. Who would have thought that the internet would have been this way to get the messages out there? So thank you for what you're doing. And again, thank you for having me out. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Matthew. Blessings and guidance until we meet again.
Until we meet again. Peace and love, everyone. Thank you.
Peace and love.